Testing, 1, 2, 1, 2. Alrighty, it's time. So I just gotta quickly enable Christian. Alrighty. Alright, g'day guys. Hope you can hear me. See how we go. G'day Christian, can you hear me?
Sure can.
Alright, sweet. Hope you guys are doing well. G'day guys out there online. Yeah, welcome to another session. I think it's part 14. It's not part 13. Is it 14? I think it's 14.
I've lost count.
Yeah, it's been too many now, and it's actually I think it's 14. But the thing is Twitch doesn't record it, so the only one I'm really concerned about is YouTube. And I've got to kind of I've been meaning to go through it later and just kind of organize it all, but it's good.
Yeah, no, it's part 14.
It's part 14. Okay, I think it's part 14. Then I've updated with 13. I'm gonna see if I can change it now. See if it will break the stream.
Probably.
We'll see what happens. Is it still live? I'm just gonna refresh. Are we still live? G'day Anthony, how you going?
Looking forward to TAFE coming back.
Alrighty. I don't think it's refreshed it. I think I need to restart the stream. Okay, the title, broadcast options, the title says 14. I think it's, We're new teachers, yeah. Nice. Alrighty. Man, it looks like that. Okay, it looks a little blurry. Alrighty. Okay, let's get stuck into it. So, so lately what I've been doing is I've been working with Christian, and we've been basically getting we've been working with our pester tests. So we've pretty much concluded all the Azure functions that need to be written now, and we're kind of now going to start stepping into that testing phase. So we're going to basically go through that process again with Christian. We're going to run some pester tests. Christian will continue to update offline, and then hopefully I can nail out some of these. Nail out the service, and then we're pretty much done. So apart from cleaning up the database, because the database probably is full of tests. Lots and lots of tests. We could probably do an assert mocked, but I don't know how to do that inside a function, especially when you're testing the integration of testing the functionality of function. Integration test anyway. So that's something that obviously we can learn. But I've actually just before we get started, I kind of actually just want to throw this up to everyone because it's an interesting one. I kind of looked at it. I think I know the answer. So I'm just going to we'll quickly flick to scene. Actually, no screen. So this is my the PowerShell meetup group for Brisbane. So we basically have our own little scripting help, and we like to do we just throw obviously things. So Wayne's thrown this one up. He's got a class. You can see there he's got a property called test. He's got a hidden property called hash table, and he wants to convert it to a hash table. So and so what I'm seeing is he's got this get member property type name. So he's getting the property name, member type property. It's also really important to when you do get members, obviously object type property and node property. They are you need to look for both of them. Where object this, so that's the current object. So that'll be class 3 dollar. So that would be okay. So that's the object he's passing in. So this dot hash table. Okay, so if we look at the example, new object test 3 path. So it's going test 3. Okay, yep, new object test 3 path, prints out test 3. It should return an object, and then he's running it to the method of to hash table, which doesn't work. Hash 3. That looks like, so if he's going to hash table, so he's passing the object itself is taking test, Um, where object is that? I'm just struggling. Why would you need the where object though? Because you're filtered by the property already. So he's getting member prop. Oh yeah, no. I know why. Because what he's doing here is he needs to get all the properties. So he's enumerated all the properties, and then basically he's filtering it by the where by each of those properties from the object, and then for each of those properties he's basically building a new hash. So he's going this.hashtable.add the value, so that's the key, and then that's the value. So
So the key is the property names.
yeah, the key is the property name. Exactly right. So so the key is the property name, and then basically he's referencing this, and then dollar so dollar underscore is basically corresponds to the property value. So you remember how like if you've got like um, object dot property, that's exactly what it's saying. It's just doing it in a dynamic sense because he's inside a for each object. He's using the current object, the current index object within the loop. So I think the first thing I spot is that basically he needs to select, when he uses this, he needs to select properties as well as note properties, because I remember when we used, if we quickly jump back to the code, because the code actually has a really good example. I'll just quickly have a squeeze. Is this the one? No, it's not. It's this one. So if we have a look at the code, I have test object property. And test object property is looking at properties, parameterized properties as well. And that basically was something that it needed to, because they're both types of properties. It's yeah, so you can have different types, but basically member type properties. I'm actually using member type properties. He's using member type property. Interesting. And now I'm going to actually just going to quickly grab this code. We're going to just chuck it in. We're going to chuck it in IC because it's the fastest way I can debug right now. I can debug way faster in the IC than anything else. So before we get started, I just want to quickly do this. So let's execute that. Let's have a quick look. It doesn't compile. Actually, no, it does. There we go. Okay, so that's fine. I'm just going to do this. Is that #3? Oh, okay. So let me have a quick look to see if actually what's it doing here. Actually, it might actually work. So if we go new object, set the property, we're dumping the property now. We should see, yeah, path. And so if I run this, okay, so okay. I see what he's doing. He's actually built so this is not okay, I was confused. I actually thought this was not working. That's fine. What he's trying to do is dynamically build a hash table so that he can splat it in. Okay, but if he goes #3, I think it's just because he needs to actually parameterize it, doesn't he? Obviously, cannot find path C users because it's type hash table. This is interesting. Sorry, I'm just going to quickly troubleshoot this for a couple of minutes further, and then we'll get stuck in. So if we go test3, interesting. What's type? Oh, it helps if I actually specify the commandlet. Yeah. Type name. The reason why is because the type name is oh no, he's doing two hash table. Yeah, that's fine. Wonder if yeah, I think the reason why is because it's how PowerShell interprets the value. So what you could do here potentially, ooh, this is I don't think this is gonna work at all. Yeah, no, that's interesting. Yeah, that's very interesting. I think it's yep, instantiations and method calls. Yeah, I think that's yeah. I think it requires an @ symbol. It doesn't actually look at type. But that's to inject splattable items. PowerShell to inject splattable items. Interpreting this as. Am I feeling better? No, I'm not. Definitely not, mate. I'm still. I went for a run yesterday. I went for a run last week and got sick. So, yeah, I'm still not well. GCI. Then GCI at. I'm just doing this to write it out in full text. Test3 to hash table. To get around this. All right, that's it. Sorry, Christian, I was boring you. Yeah, thanks, mate.
No, that's okay.
All right.
I was trying to pay attention. A lot of that just went over the top.
So I'll just quickly, I'll go through like bit by bit for you guys what I'm talking about. So let's take a step back when I was teaching you Splat. So we'll
Yep.
talk about Splat for a second. So Splat's basically when we are creating a hash table and we're parameterizing our key value items so that when we're actually passing into a commandlet, we just reference it by the @ and then the variable name, and then PowerShell automatically then builds the parameters out of that hash table. What Wayne is saying here is that basically when he builds a hash table, so if I build a hash table like so, actually this is a good example. This is a hash table. It's completely legit. It's completely fine. That's fine. But if I try and splat that in, it's not possible. And that's actually totally correct. And what I believe is happening, I don't know the inner workings of PowerShell. But PowerShell, from what I understand, so if I do, for example, let's just create a quick splat item here. And we're going to go var equals path equals ctemp. So if we do this, and we then go get child item, and then we go var, like so, that's how PowerShell's interpreting this line here on 14, because the way that PowerShell's supposed to reference when you're splatting, you remember how we have to use the @ the @
Yep.
you can see it still does, like, it's an error because the path doesn't exist, but it actually is not this hash table. So the reason PowerShell requires the @ symbol to be able to denote to the as a parameter block, sorry, to the not to the pipeline, to the commandlet itself, that it's actually a it's a splattable item rather than a variable. So I think the @ symbol actually denotes that it's a splat specifically rather than the type. And so what I mean by that is, Wayne was thinking, because it's a type hash table, like so, hash tables are basically it's exactly the same. Like they're both exactly the same type. Like if you were looking at var to that, like with the exception to the the capital P, that doesn't matter with PowerShell, all the values ctemp, they're both exactly the same. So if I was to do a get member on that, you can see that that's a type hash table. And if I go var get member, you can see that's type hash table. So they're literally apples. They're both apples. They're both exactly the same. The only difference between the two is the fact that the @ symbol is basically present, and that's the only, I think what my personal opinion is that basically the @ symbol denotes to the commandlet that I'm a splattable item, and then take my key values from the hash table and then insert them as parameters. So that's what I'm thinking is happening there. But yeah, that's actually a really good one. But yeah, I think it requires an @ it needs that @ to symbolize, because at the end of the day, though, if it doesn't, then PowerShell can get confused in the pipe, like how does it denote between the two? So I think
Yeah.
that's actually, I'm actually going to quickly write that in there. And between var and actually not, because it's like, yeah, I don't think it's needed. I think it's already that's already pretty much explanatory as it is. Anyway, all right, let's get started. Minimize. Out of the IC. Love the IC.
I just wish it had a customizable color scheme.
It does. It's just terrible.
Does it have a dark setup?
It does, but you have to tweak it for ages. Okay, from a coding perspective, I like VS Code. I just like, just 100% hands down. VS Code, just like, it's so easy to use. When it comes to just smashing something out really quickly, I can do it much faster than the IC and VS Code, and that's just because it's me. I'm more preferred to IC. So at the end of the day, though, it's yeah, it is what it is. But yeah, I think yeah. So anyway, let's get stuck into these jobs. So we're going to run our last job. We're going to run our last one. And the reason why I want to run our last, we're going to run our last pester test. Sorry. The reason why I want to run our last pester test is because we need to test old mate here, which is invoke trap web errors. So we were testing this last time on PS5. We're going to be now testing this on core. We're going to be obviously moving everything. Everything should be in core. We're going to be putting it in core. Now, for us to be able to put this in core, there was a known error there, but now I've actually figured out that debugging in PowerShell pertains to the workspace directly in the directory. We can now start actually troubleshooting this easier. So we're going to have errors. That's totally fine, but now we're going to actually troubleshoot them. So are we in live show together? Yep, we are. Perfect. Sweet. So I'm in invoke trap errors at the moment. So what I'm going to do is hit a we're going to start hitting some breakpoints here, and we're going to try and work out what the dealio is going on here. So I'm going to whack some breakpoints, and we're going to try and work out what's going on here. So step number 1. I've got my functions running in the background, so I've executed them. They've started up. They're all good to go. This start job test, this we know is working. It works in 5, but it doesn't work in core. So we know the logic, it pertains to the PowerShell test itself rather than the logic in the script. I haven't missed anything in there, so we should be alright. So I'm going to head over to debug, fix my debug, add some configurations. Just do that. Add them all. Sweet. Alright. Save that. Let's launch. So first things we need to do is we're going to hit a breakpoint there. So the reason why I'm breakpointing is I want the script to stop at that point in time. I don't want it to go any further. I want to kind of stop it, at least, and then basically we can start the debug process. We can start execution and doing things what we need to do. Okay, actually no. First set of the test should work. It's going to be the second set because we're testing for errors. So we can just test on this. I am going to put a return here because to do remove me. The reason why is because we only need to test the first one. We don't need to test the subsequent ones because once the first one's been fixed, the subsequent ones should work. So, does that make sense?
It does.
Perfect. All right. So, let's get started debugging. I actually have to admit, I really enjoy debugging. It's something that I don't know why, but I really like doing. So we're running our initial. I can see the functions launching, so that's sweet. So we got all our passes, fantastic. Now we're sending some dirty data. We've hit our breakpoint. Where's my interactive prompt? Don't tell me it's not working. Oh no, I need my interactive prompt. Why is it not working? Okay, I've got multiple launch current files. Just gonna try and reload it. It's gonna time out. Always love this. Always love this. Got it working this morning at work. I was like, sweet, I fully understand how to use it. And then I basically come to do here and then demos.
Isn't that always the way, though?
In tech, demos are like, yeah.
Or when you need help on something and it's not working, so you get someone to help you, and then it works when they're there.
If you guys can actually if anyone's watching that can actually provide feedback on it, this would be fantastic because it's something that, like for me, debugging is something like it's so essential to scripting. And I just I don't want to have to deal with IDE issues. Sorry, IC issues with anything. Like I just want it to work. Like it worked, like it touched. This drives me absolutely bonkers. Let's see if I can get it to work this time. It's probably not going to work. I honestly don't want to have to step, but if I have to step, okay. We're stepping manually. All right. I have to actually go look up the commands. I haven't done this in a very long time.
The step commands is in step into, step out.
Yeah.
F11 is step into, and shift F11 is step out.
That's with the interactive, but because we don't have the interactive, we're going to be doing it via the command line, which is really, really frustrating. To get help from debugging commands, simply type bar. Okay. Where's my debugger? Where's my debug window? Okay. Fantastic. Fantastic. Oh, there we go. Okay, it's inside the PowerShell window. Sweet. All right, let's start stepping. All right, we're going to step into... Actually, no, we're going... Yeah, what do we... We've got a breakpoint, don't we? We've got a breakpoint lined up somewhere. Yeah, we've got a breakpoint. We can actually just continue. We can continue all the way to there. So, just going to say C, continue. Hit, there we go. All right, now we're in business. So, we've hit breakpoint line 9 here. Now we can step. So, let's step it in. Let's have a look at our error. That's fantastic. There's no error. There should be an error. Okay. Okay. I should be able to just start dump. Do I? Oh, because I'm in a debug session. List code for the script. Let's do this. Okay. All right. Let's try this SB because we're inside something. Okay, so we are getting stuff out, but it didn't like it. Okay, I'm just gonna step again. Step, step. Okay, we're hung. Okay. Whoa! Ho 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 ho. 93. What's that
That
on?
that was the invoke trap.
Yeah, that's the trap. This is a pain in the backside. It really is. Alright, that's what we're gonna do. I'm going to do breakpoints. I'm gonna terminate the script. We're going to stop debugging. Exit our session. Yep, we're gonna restart it. We're gonna restart our bad. We're gonna start this bad boy again. Launch current file. Okay, 93. All right. Now, if we continue again, we should hit a breakpoint on one of these three. So we're hitting invoke trap errors on 10. So we are catching a system.net.web exception. So I should be able to see. I should be able to see the actual error itself, but it's not printing it. But it is on line 10. Actually, I'm just going to continue. So now it's writing the output. Well, if we know that's the case, and we're hitting line 10, at least we're in a better spot. So what we can do now, I'm just going to stop debugging. We're going to exit. What I mean there is that because we know now we're actually going down this path, we know that it's a system.net web exception, we can actually start to funnel out why that's broken. So what we can do there is this is executed, so this should already be in memory if I execute. No, it's not. That's fine. We can load it into memory. Oh yeah, because we restarted it. So what we can do here is we'll just quickly restart that. So I've just loaded all the supporting stuff in. And now we're just going to rerun this bad boy. And that's going to get our error. Actually, no, it's not. It's going to be successful because what is it? No, it's not. It's going to break. Success status code is false. That's very interesting. So you see how it doesn't return everything? So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to actually dump the entire object. I just want to see the entire object, and we're just going to do some crash debugging. So we're going to need to reload it. So we go back up here, hit F8, reload that, scroll back down here. I'm going to re-execute this line again. I'm just going to F8 this bad boy. Oh, actually, no, we need to actually put the whole body in, but yeah. Yep. Okay, so if we go result, here we go. So this is the full, this should be the full error. It's returning a different type. Bad request. I'm actually going to do this. so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to simplify our code a bit. I know that it should, like, we know that it's been executed, but I'm just simplifying everything so that we're not kind of oh, where is it? What is it? What is it? There it is. There she is. So if you just dump that in there. I'm doing a return rather than a write output because return and write sorry, return and write output are slightly different. Return will stop execution, where write output will continue execution. So what I'm doing.
Is it a bit like the continue silently sort of command?
No, so for example, when return gets called, what happens is return is like a it'll actually return to the parent. So it'll end the function and then return back to the parent, rather than like write output will just basically push that output into the pipeline, whereas return is actually returning it to the parent. So sorry, I'm just confused myself. So where write output would actually pipe it to the pipeline, but it will continue execution, and we actually don't want that. So I'm going to kind of just dump the entire. I'm actually just going to change this by doing this. I'm just going to catch all errors. We're not care, like we want everything, and we're going to test it all. So if we run it again, I need to relaunch the code. So every time you make changes to a function, it needs to be reloaded in memory, because the memory is basically current. So it's still keep thinking that, you know, it's got the existing piece in. So if we rerun this again, I actually want to see what gets pushed out. Pay dirt. That's what we're looking for. That bad boy there. So now we can actually go find that message. So this is where we're getting the good stuff. So now if we go var, we can actually have a look at our members. And there it is. So what we're going to do now I'm also going to try something. I want to actually know what. Now that's interesting. So it's actually an error record that it returns. So it's not returning that type. That's fine. So what I'm doing now is so now if the HTTP error message response was sent back, we actually can now return that rather than that. So like so. Else just dump the entire thing. Actually, I'm gonna throw. So so you remember what throw does?
Throw is kind of like a stop function. It throws the error and it'll just stop the script there.
Close. Throw will basically throw a terminating error. So in this instance, we've basically done a try. We're going to basically do a try, and we're trapping all errors. If the error body doesn't contain a message, so if the HTTP call doesn't send a message, it'll throw. Throw will basically terminate, will send a terminating error. So what's the difference between its non-terminating and terminating error?
Whether or not the script continues.
Exactly. So when we throw a terminating error, this will get past the pester and it will stop the script. so we know that there's a significant issue there. G'day mate, how you going? Project we're making is it's basically oh, I just had a massive memory blank. Christian, you can do this one, mate. You can do this one.
It's meant to be a Here I go. So memory blank. It's meant to be a remote execution for PowerShell.
Yeah. So what we're doing here is we're basically using Azure Functions, PowerShell Preview 2.0, and what we're doing is we're basically simulating a hybrid runbook worker with Azure automation. So we have a server or a service running on a machine out on the internet, and we can actually send PowerShell jobs too. So what we're doing is you can send a script block of code, and basically the service on the other end will receive that job using functions as a medium, and then execute it, and then send the right output. So very similar to Azure Automation. So if you've ever used Azure Automation, it's basically just a hybrid runbook worker concept. So what I'm gonna do here now is we've got our results, we've basically got our message, which is perhaps down there. So now we should be able to convert from JSON. So I'm actually going to just hit it, because at the end of the day though, we're either going to know it's going to work or it's not. So
do you want to pull out that return you added first?
Sorry, say again. This return?
No.
Oh, this one? No, yeah, I want to keep it. I want to keep it.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to keep that because I kind of want to just actually, before we do it, I'm actually just going to do this first. I'm going to reload it. So I've reloaded our function. So now we can basically see what this does. We should see an object come back, and then we should see the property error, and it should not be null, which it's not, and that is the test. So now we're going to do it. We're going to do it. So I'm just going to say chat. Let's do it. Oh, whoops.
Still in debug.
Oh no, I'm just going to stop and exit debug. The reason why is because I didn't clear all my breakpoints. Yeah, we can just reload it. I need to fix that, so yeah. Oh neat, I'm on all premise, so no experience with Azure. Oh yep. You're like, at the end of the day though, I definitely recommend you checking out like some of those Azure products. There's a lot of like, I predominantly work with Azure. Like I'm a Microsoft house, so I work in Instant Technology. We do yeah, we're basically just a Microsoft Gold partner that does everything Microsoft. Oh sweet, look at that, it's passed, everything's passed.
Beautiful.
Yes, perfect. So yeah, basically, yeah, my day to day is Microsoft. I've got a lot of other guys like in our PowerShell user group. We basically got Ansible. I've got Glenn. Glenn's probably watching. He's probably lurking. Glenn works at Puppet. So there's actually a huge variety in terms of tech stack. My mate Wayne, he basically works predominantly. They've got a huge automation, but they're hybrid cloud, so they're basically AWS and Azure. And it's really quite a really awesome, like I love working in Azure. Like I actually really enjoy all that kind of stuff, because at the end of the day though, like it's just for me, I automate for a living. So this is, yeah, it's my bread and butter. It's like home, really it is, and we can build crazy integrations and things like that. Anyway, all right, let's get stuck in the next ones. So we're going to be running some pester tests that Christian's wrote. So if the stream stops working, it's Christian's fault. If you've wrote a stop stream, like you've like disabled network card, I'm gonna be like pissed. I'll be like, Christian, we're gonna have a chat, man.
I never even thought of that.
Oh man, I like I tell you now that if you like had the opportunity to change my wallpaper, this would have been the time. So.
Oh well, there's always
yeah.
future streams.
Yeah, future stream. And we're like, what the hell's going on? And you'd be like, gotcha. I'm like, oh man, best troll ever. Anyway, so send job. Did you do one? Was send job one?
Yes.
Okay.
However, I don't know if you've got a endpoint for your local host on that.
Let's have a look.
So the URI endpoint of your local host API.
Hmm.
I don't know if that's / HTTP send job.
Okay, let me have a look. That's fine. I'm just gonna restart the functions. Oh, I don't even need to like. I don't like. Yeah, yeah. No, no, no. I was like, oh, I don't need to. I shouldn't need to attach a thingy to it because at the end of the day though I'm like no, and then I'm like yes I do. I should be. I was like I was just gonna do a function host start, but I'm like no I need to do a debugging. Okay, so URLs. I'm just gonna dump them in send host so we can have a bit of an idea what's going on. So we've got send job, which is this one. So yes, there is a send job. So you basically hit it. So it's 7071. So we'll have a look at the schema. So what we're going to do is so imports to include in the body, which is GUID, response body, status code, successful failure. Okay, so this is actually something with integration testing. We're going to actually have to probably build out a full request set. So what we're going to probably need to do to test this. I'm just like we've actually started this process, so now we're actually going to need to yeah, okay. So what we're going to need to do is how's the server mate, this is like as dodgy as you're going to get it. There's no authentication at all because it's a proof of concept project, but the at the end of the day though, if you wanted to take this commercial, like you could just use OAuth 2, OAuth 3, you know, and then basically just use a API time. Realistically, like this is just kind of I'm just managing a I'm just kind of like getting it up for getting it up, like yeah. So I would never use this in a commercial environment, not in 100 million years. But like there's a lot of expand, like this can be expanded. There's a lot, you know, and obviously there's a lot of impact is there. Oh, impact. There's a lot of potential. Anyway, so what I'm saying is, Christian, we're actually going to need to build a full test suite.
Yep.
So what I mean by that is we need to be able to create a job. We're going to need to get that GUID. Once we've got the GUID, we're going to need then basically be able to do a receive job. We're going to then execute the PowerShell. We're going to then hand the thing back, and then we're going to basically think. But we're going to need to test all that working. But then we're basically going to need to test and try and break it as well. So yeah, this is actually going to be an interesting series of tests because yeah, we're going to have to basically write it all out. So if we go back, so what we're going to need to do here, we're going to obviously I'm going to have a think about how we're going to do this, but we're going to do it. So regardless, we're going to need to start working out how we're going to send our job back. So before we do that, actually, no, we're not. We're not going to do that. We're not going to do that. We're going to do something better. So each of these steps is testing a key component. So for example, what we're going to do is we're going through the full cycle. So we're sending a job. We're then going to receive that job. We're going to execute that job, and then we're going to send it back. And then we're going to basically pretend to be the client, and then go receive the output. Does that make sense?
Yes.
That there was a bit of a behavioral pause there. So I'm just going to.
Yeah. No. I was just processing.
Okay, cool. What we're going to do is after each series of tests have been passed, so what I mean by that is, for example, HTTP send job, we know it passes, so we know the job's good. So rather than actually having to rely on the outcome of these tests, we can actually just use HTTP send job. We can actually just send the job statically, and then basically from that we know that test is fine. We know it's working. We know everything's fine. So we can then send the job, and then once we've sent the job, then we're gonna receive the job, and we can then run all the series of tests on the receive. Does that make sense?
No,
Okay.
that part didn't.
Okay, so what I mean by that is, so we've done our first test, which is HTTP send job. That's fine. That's perfectly good. There's no issues there now. That test is 100% pass. We're happy with it. So now we're going to be doing HTTP receive job. HTTP receive, was it HTTP receive job? No, it's HTTP request job. HTTP request job is what's done on the server side. So now, because we're basically doing the full lifecycle process. So if you think about it, we're basically going, okay, we're sending the job to Azure function, and then we're going to have a test that basically over here that we know that that send job is working fine, so we're happy. So then what we're going to do is we're going to have another test here that's going to send the job, and then we can control that, and then basically we're going to receive the job, and then we're going to do all the tests on that receive functionality. And then once we've done that, basically we're going to do the test. The third test would basically be the send the job, the receive the job. We know they both work, and then we're going to request the job. Also, we're going to send the job back, so that'll be send job. So we're going to do a HTTP send job back, and then once that works, then we test. And then once we know that those three tests work, then the final test, which is HTTP receive job, which is done on the client side, that's basically going to be the first test, which will be HTTP start job. Oh, sorry. Man, I'm literally confusing myself because we've named these terribly. So we got HTTP start job. After HTTP start job, then we're going to request it, and we know that entire process. What we're doing is we're testing each segment, but with each segment, we're assuming that the previous segment's worth of test is successful. If it's not, well then that test will fail.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's basically what we're going to do. We've done the first series of those tests, so that's fine. So this is HTTP send job, which we know is 100% working. We're happy with it.
No, we know start job is working.
Oh, sorry, yeah,
Send job is
start
the
job.
one I wrote.
So the next one we need to get is not send job. We need to get request job. That's the number 2 in the big thing. So what we need to do here is we've got HTTP request job. First thing we need to do is load our supporting functions. Define our URL endpoint. Before we do any of that as well, after we've defined our URL endpoint, we're now going to send a job to the server. So what we're going to do is jump back into send job.
You mean start job?
Oh, sorry, start job. I'm confusing myself. What we're going to do here.
That's still send job.
Oh, jeez. I'm just going to close that down. Yep, perfect. So what we're going to do here, I'm not a fan of this, but we can clean this up later. I'm just kind of thinking about this in my head. We don't need to do any of that. We're assuming that it's fine.
So if we're declaring the body up here, we don't need to declare it further down under context?
We will.
Right.
Actually, you know what we're going to do? So I'm just kind of squirming around for a bit. What we're going to do here. So we wrote those two functions called get PS remote job and start PS remote job.
Yep.
So I'm thinking we just use those. So what I'm going to do is drop them as supporting functions. No, we're not. We're going to write them from the test because it's easier to manage. So, are we ready? Yes, we are. Sweet. Let's do it. So what we're going to do.
I have no idea what's going on.
Okay.
Just saying.
So we're basically building out a life cycle here. So basically we're going to in this instance what I'm doing is I'm just going to say what's this start job body. So what I'm doing here.
If you change the start job body there, do you need? Oh no, it's already changed.
Yep, I'm
cool.
already updating it. Okay. To create a start job. To create a job. A known good job. Okay, so we now have our loaded job. So when we do a start job with this, we're going to get an output of we're going to get our GUID. We're going to get our I think it's going to get our GUID, isn't it? Our GUID, I think. What's
Well, yeah, you'd get
I can't remember what the test said. What's the testing test? Success. Status. The GUID status. GUID status. That's it. So
and then
success.
yeah, queued.
Yep, sweet. So I'm going to grab that and we're going to basically shove that there. So I'm just going to, what I do just to kind of refresh myself is I usually do something like this. Oh, it's right there. Sweet, perfect. Do that because basically what you're doing is when you're looking, it just helps you quickly go, okay, that's what the response is. So you're not kind of jabbering around trying to work it out. So now we know we have a good response. We know what the response is. We're happy.
Yep.
Sweet. Response is going to be queued, not in progress. That's fine. Sweet. Now we're going to do a standard request. Now we're going to pretend to be the server. So what we're going to do here, now we are going to be the server. Fetch all the jobs. Not request. All the jobs. Now before we do that, I just quickly want to check it because I want to make sure.
Yeah.
So it's a request query. So what we're testing here is a query. We're actually not testing. We're just testing the computer name.
Okay. I was putting in the requested jobs part from further down. So if you go down to the main section, that's where I was looking for the inputs for the test.
Yeah, no worries. I'm just looking at the actual function itself. So it's sending a it just requires a computer name. Oh, okay, sweet. So we're going to send a known computer name, which is called pester tests, and then we're going to send a response back. So now This is where we go down to our context block. So remember how I'm talking about scope within PowerShell?
Yes.
We can actually reference these values outside or inside of the context block, even though it's basically, actually no, it's not a before or. It's basically a try catch. Should be fine. Should be fine. It's in a try catch. It's basically, if I remember reading it, before all is basically just a try catch. So what it means is that within PowerShell, if you have a try catch, it still is referenceable. So that should be fine. So what we can do, we're going to now chuck this. We're going to basically build our response. So we're going to do a testing standard request. Testing standard. I'm just going to put a no. Standard request should not be null. Actually, I think that's perfectly fine. Our standard request is URL query.
I'll be back in a minute.
Yeah, no worries, mate. So our standard request is going to be URL query. So what we can do here, we don't actually need any of that. We just need to build up our URL endpoints. So it's going to be, we don't actually even need this. We just need to get. So I'm just going to do a params. So what we're going to do is URI. It's going to be so I'm just kind of mulling it over in my head. I think it's .name. Oh, it's .computer. Oh, another really cool thing I actually wanted, I totally forgot to mention, was that if you haven't used Azure Key Vault, I really recommend it. So I've got an SQL query that I'm running here. And SQL, obviously, I'm not using integrated login because I'm using Azure. Azure doesn't allow that. So what I have here is I can actually store a password as a secure string. And what I'm doing is I'm just passing it through here, so I actually have hard-coded passwords in my script. It's actually really cool, and it just basically natively integrates, so it's really quite cool. So what I'm going to do, so our property that we're looking for is computer name, so that's perfectly fine. So what we're going to do is jump back into our test. Computer name equals like so. We're then going to string format that bad boy, and we're going to go URL endpoint like so, and then we're going to say we're going to go start job body like so, and then we're going to go .computer name. So we're referencing this hash table in this computer name. So I just realized we're going to need to do a big cleanup after this too. That's something we're going to need to do, Christian.
Yeah.
We're going to need, like, so in the after all, what we're going to do is after all the tests have run, we're going to basically clean of the database so that we're not doing what we're doing now, which is just adding rows. So we're cleaning up after ourselves. It also means that basically the test is not going to have any sort of false positives. So we're basically ensuring compliance. But yeah, so what we're going to need to do there, Christian, you can basically do this. Do you have invoke SQL query? I don't think you do. I don't think you have it in there.
You mean in the actual request job itself, or in the function?
Oh, sorry, in Visual Studio. Sorry, if you have the function available. I don't think you will because I've had to limit the workspace. That's right. So what we're gonna do. just added a new function. So it basically we just added SQL support. So what we can do now is we can do an invoke SQL query, and we'll clean that up. So I need to do that off camera. I'm not going to expect you to do it because that's something that's a little bit over your head. So what we're going to do now is we've got our yep, that's fine. So we started our job. We're going to now do an invoke initial rest, invoke our we're going to fetch the server jobs. So what we're going to do is go get invoke rest method, URL endpoint method get, application JSON. We actually don't need a body. We only need a URI and a method. And you don't even actually, no, we don't even need a method because method defaults to get. Maybe a content type. I'm just going to put content type in there because I don't know how. I know Logic Apps is very finicky about it, so that's why I'm kind of like, we'll just put that in there. So what am I going to do here, Christian?
Clean it up.
No, what am I going to, line 56? What am I going to do?
Invoke rest method, and you put, just type that somewhere random, hang on. You put the $sign params.
Is it $sign? Are you sure it's $sign?
Well, it's
What are we doing?
So no, it's a hash table, so it's the at.
Why is it an at? It's a splat. We're doing a big old splat. Alright, sweet. So what we're doing here is basically I'm pasting, I'm just putting the parameters into that so it's passing. And our response will be variable rest response assigned as not never known. Sweet, that's fine. All good in the hood. So one thing I'm also going to do, Christian, I'm just going to create a new file and I'm going to call it I'm just going to call it test cleanup. Invoke test SQL cleanup. So what we can do is basically what we can do here is we can actually we can just run a whole bunch of I can write a big batch, excuse me, I can write a massive batch of SQL.
Yeah.
We can just run one line straight in there so that when we do our after all,
where we just type in invoke SQL cleanup.
No, it'll do it automatically. So after each test, it cleans the existing environment and then preps it for the next test. So
okay.
Yeah, 2 seconds worth of work. But yeah, it's obviously still important. So what we're going to do is we're going to use test.computer as our I'm just going to close things down that we're not using. We're going to use pester test as our computer name, and that's going to be standard across everything. So obviously a standard computer is not going to be affected, and we're only going to be basically what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a delete star from that database where computer name is equal to that. So then that means that we basically have a complete clear slate. Everything else is completely fine. So that's just, what I might quickly do is update start job. So we see we've got computer name now. We're going to clean that up. And then we're going to do that here as well. So anywhere it has a computer name, I'm just going to make sure it's pester test. We know that those bottom ones are going to fail, so it shouldn't work, but just in the unlikely event it does add, we still need to clean it up. So it's just that basically being, prudent. Anyway, so let's keep going. Let's keep cracking on this bad boy. So next thing we need to do is we've basically got our pester test. We've loaded our job. going to invoke SQL query. Oh, we're not going to do that. We're not going to even do that. We're just going to do invoke SQL cleanup. We'll deal with it. We'll deal with all the hokey pokey. We'll deal with all the righty. So now we're basically okay. Tested standard URL query. So we've run that test. That's our response. So we need to now start testing our response. So if we have a quick look at what the responses were. So I'm just kind of
we're gonna have to change everything written.
That's fine.
From
it's HTTP request job, isn't it?
This one, yes.
Perfect. Okay, so so what we've got here, so due to the possibility of executing code twice, due to service runs not asynchronously, okay, we're looking for status queued. What's it going to do back? Okay, so one thing that this thing will do is that unless the jobs, like the job, that row won't be removed until it won't be removed from the database until the send job goes back. Actually, no, it won't be removed at all until that job goes back. Until some sort of cleanup script runs it. So what we can do here, we're looking at how it's returning that response. So the status code, no, we're looking for that. Actually, no, it does update it. Sorry, no, my bad. It actually updates it, so it actually changes the status. So that's the thing we need to test for. We actually can do an SQL test to see if that subsequent response has been updated. So that's actually one thing we can do there. So we'll quickly go back. I'm just going to write our tests. Man, I'm all over the shop. And I'm trying to work out where I am at the moment. No, it's not this one. It's this one. So we can. So I think like those ones are fine. We're looking for success. What's it actually getting back? HTTP response body. Okay. So what we should be getting back is a property called requested jobs. Check for an empty string. Nulls are not allowed. Invalidate jobs that haven't been submitted correctly. If they're bad, send an error status back to the SQL server. Okay, cool. So what we can do here. No, we're not. We actually don't need to test that functionality. That's something that the next part of the next part of the test does. All we need to validate is the fact that do we get a response. So if we send good code, do we get a success? If we send a bad code, what happens? We should get a failure. So this test is actually really easy. This is actually really good. So we've got, if we're looking at actually I'm going to send you a VS Live share because I've got another.
So opening new instance.
Yeah, because I have like no, you can have multiple instances running. So I'm just gonna chat this over to you now. So that's just basically the reason why I kind of want you to have a look at this is because I'm looking at the actual function itself. So this is really where if you do test-driven development, you would actually write the test before you write the function, and I broke obviously that rule. So yeah, and this is actually where test would have, this makes it much easier. So just let me know when you can see it. Oh, we just reloaded. We just reloaded functions. Sweet. So so as you can see here, I'll get you to follow along with me.
Yep.
Okay, so we're basically we're fetching the code based on the status queued. Any sort of errors, it'll send back an error, but we can basically validate on the next test that's okay. So the following thing we need to do is we're validating any jobs that have been submitted correctly. So obviously, yeah, if there's anything that hasn't been submitted, we can test that. So what we can do there is we can basically test for a failure. Actually, no, that won't actually submit any failures. That's only going to submit errors back. So that's something that we need to be aware of in our subsequent tests. So when we're testing the response back, one of our tests might be, okay, send a bad job, receive that bad job, and then trace that and see what happens. And if it's okay, then you've got a problem. But if it's not, then you're okay. So and the response body is basically, we've got requested jobs. So we've got a jobs property, and within each of those jobs property, we should have serialized code. That's basically it.
So it should be response body.jobs equals requested jobs, where the input XML is not equal to empty.
Well, exactly right. Like, we're just going to say it's not equal to null. Like, that's pretty much it. So this actually makes this test really easy. So what we can do is we're going to test the spot. We're going to test the response, looking for nulls. Should not be null. Okay. Where are we? Okay, sweet. So we're going to basically firstly test the response.
Essentially, I left that part of the code the same. It was from hang on. It was from this part down that I changed.
Okay. Looking for invalid data. Yeah, this one's going to be actually, to be honest, to your credit, mate, that's a pretty tough one. So, what we can do here, is we can go, we've got error response dot error. Is that ever going to write an error back? So we can have a quick squiz. I'm just going to have a quick look. Is there going to be an error ever being written back? Yes, there is. So computer name key value pair is empty. So we can actually look for that. Is there any times other for error equals? So I'm just looking. Oh, there's a second one. What's that? Computer name. Okay, so there's two. So one of them is a bad SQL query. That's going to be hard to test. I think what we can do there is I might actually write some injection, and we can just inject code into it and it'll break. And then we can actually test that functionality. Okay, sweet. So if we jump back to our first one, so these three tests should be fine. Now we need to, the thing what we're going to need to do after that is we set the job. We need to we're going to deserialize and execute the PowerShell. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go testing job. Sorry.
I thought the request job was only to see whether the jobs were there, and then the receive job pulled the job itself down.
Request job. No, receive job is basically when you're actually receiving the job back from its response.
Okay.
Request job is actually the server side saying, hey, what do you have for me? Hang on, let me just validate that. Yeah, that's correct. Okay, yeah. So what we're going to I don't know if you've seen that, but what I've just done is I've changed it to a single job rather than we need to state that it's a single job because we're going to do two tests. We're going to do a single job and then we're going to do a multi-job. And what we're going to do there is we're going to test for one response and then we're going to test for two responses. So single job testing standard request URL query should be null. Sweet. We're going to do our standard execution. Excuse me. We're going to test our responses. Then we're going to deserialize and execute the PowerShell. We're basically, remember, we're assuming that's a single job. So I'm just going to test. Testing single job. So what we can do here is we can then go REST response dot job, and how we're going to validate it's a single job. What property we're going to use?
GUID. The GUID should be unique, right?
No, we can just use count.
Yeah.
Because basically,
count is equal to 1.
Just give me a quick second. I just want to have a quick look at the cert. No, because that's basically for something in for each. Okay, so we're just going to say should be 1. Once we know that, we're going to then deserialize and execute the PowerShell. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go REST response dot job, and how we're going to execute it. Firstly, how we're going to deserialize it. What do you reckon we're going to do?
Convert from JSON, or is it base64 encoded?
It's base64 encoded. Remember, we send it up base64. It's coming back base64 land.
Yeah.
So job convert from base64, and how we're going to execute this bad boy?
That I don't know.
We're going to wrap it inside a curly brace. I'm going to stick it in like that. I'm going to do that because I've got a cold. And I'm just thinking how we're going to execute this because we've just done a write host. I'm just going to quickly play around with the thing. Should not. So what we're going to do. This is what we're going to do. So what I'm thinking, and the way I'm going to test this. Perfect. Actually, no.
That should come up with true, right?
Yeah, it's a Boolean evaluation. You're 100% right. So what we're going to do is do that. There we go. So if we say, instead of write host, we do write output. And then we go pester test. Actually, we can just use the same one-liner. And then what we can do here, what do you reckon we're going to do here? So what I've done here is we're going to dot source the code. So what we by dot sourcing, we're executing the code. So I'm wrapping it inside a curly brace, which denotes what we call a script block type. So it basically says to PowerShell, "Hey, I'm code." So
okay.
What we're going to do. So what do you reckon the response should be?
It should be pester test, one word.
100% perfect. Testing job deserialize and execution. That's not how you spell execute. E-X-E-C-U-T-I-O-N. Perfect. So the reason why, so we got testing job deserialize. Deserialization and execution. That will basically validate the response, so we're good to go. Following that, then basically we know the response is good, we're happy. This, I would say, successfully constitutes as a good single job test. But now we're going to copy all that. We're going to paste it again. What are we going to do here? We're going to make it a multi-job. So how we're going to do that is ooh,
well, we're going to have to
create another request.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of thinking about how I'm going to structure this code now, because I've got it up here. So we've got one loaded request, but I think this loaded request is bonkers now. The reason why I think it is because, yes, it's bonkers. It's basically queued up, so it won't fetch that job anymore. So this, assuming the previous test was successful, we're going to start that. Yes, we actually don't need it there. It needs to go in here. And then after that, so the reason why it needs to go in there is because we're basically going to do it for each test. Sorry, for each context block. So now
we can add multiple per context block.
Exactly, 100%. So what we can do now is grab that bad boy, paste that down in here, and there we go. We've actually now can build multiple. So the way we can do that here without having to spend an arm and a leg trying to do anything, I'm just thinking about how I'm going to do this. We never used loaded job anyway. So what I'm doing, we're actually not capturing its output, so we can actually just null it. There's no point having it. So from that, what we can do here is we've got invoke rest method. We're good to go. Sweet. And then what we can do, how do you think we're going to make multiple jobs? What do you reckon we should do?
I have no idea.
Okay, I'm going to show you something really cool, right? So what I said there was go to 0 to 4. So we need to go 3. We're going to create 4 jobs because we remember 0 based. And then, not that, we can do this. Code goes in there. So for each of those times that it's going around, run this. So if you want to run 4 jobs, do that. Make sense?
Yep.
So this is like trying to get your head around, you know, the concept of writing code. Like I don't care about, in this instance, I don't care about the output. So we don't need to do any $_ or anything like that. All I care about is the actual execution. So I just want it to run 3 times. I want it to loop 3 times. So this is an array. There's 4 items within that array from 0 to 3. Go through it 4 times. That's it. Very simple. So now we've got 4 executed jobs. Create 4 jobs. Create 4 jobs, and Okay, so we've got our 4 jobs. We are sweet. We're swimming ready to go. So now we're going to scroll down here with the same tests. That's all fine. Testing response, looking for nulls, testing for jobs.
And that should be a should not be null. That should not be 1.
Well, we actually hard coded it. So what do you reckon the value should be?
Well, it should be 4.
That would actually be a better test because at the end of the day, though, if we know it needs to be 4, we're going to say it's 4. Yeah. So this is now we're going to deserialize and execute the PowerShell. How are we going to do that? What do you reckon we're going to do here?
Do the same thing you did at the start.
Very similar, very, very similar, but pretty much. So what we're going to do here, because we're actually, we're going to actually have to, this is a little thing that you, with pester, is pester tests each individual unit. It can't test a multiple. We're testing 4 jobs. We're basically deserializing and executing each of those 4 jobs. So that is a simultaneous, each of them is its own if statement. So what we need to do is break it up here. And do this. So now we're going to actually write some really cool code here. So we're going to basically say 0 to 3. We're going to go for each object like we did before. And now we're going to grab this like so. And we're going to put that there, deserialize and execute the PowerShell. And we're going to say, I'm just going to do something like this. I'm going to go job. And then I'm going to go like that, like that. Serial. So what we're going to do there, actually I don't like that. That should be fine. So I'm just going to quickly just test this. If I'm spitballing something, I'm just going to quickly test it. Yep, so it's going to do that. So we know each of the jobs that are coming back, we're happy. So we got our response job. So now, what we can do here, we know there's 4 jobs. So how are we going to make it that it's going to execute each job? What do you reckon we're going to do? We're not going to spend a lot of time on this. Like, what do you reckon we're going to do?
I don't know.
Okay, so again, this comes down to logic flow. So what we're going to do here is butter. So what I'm saying, if they got a job, give them a raise. If they got a job, okay. So if you have your REST response, so basically got our job, we're dot sourcing the code in. Just kind of going through my mind, and basically we got our REST response job, and what's the square bracket do?
That's the variable, so that'll be kind of like a for each number, each job.
Yes, so it's index value, so we call it an index. So when I'm doing a $_, I'm saying obviously there's a collection there. We know there's a collection there because of this test. And then what I'm saying here is I'm saying response.job, and then we're basically referencing, where's this referencing?
That's referencing the count.
Where's that at?
I don't know.
Line 174.
Right.
So this is the count.
Yep.
So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. We're in a for each object. So remember, in a for each object, if you want to reference the current object or item within that object, you use a $_. So the value that would be returned in each loop would be 0, 1, 2, 3. And we're using those values to reference the index of the response. So the job index value would be, or the collection is job, but we don't want that. We want the index value. So we're basically just going to go square bracket, specify the parent, the object, or the value at this point in time would be 0, 1, 2, 3, and then that would give our response. So to provide a bit of clarity, let's just do this. So we've got that, all right. So if we go, all right, array, and we go for each object, and then we go, let's just do a right host because it always makes it a little bit easier. And I'll just put some extra stuff around it so you can visualize it. I'll just use yep because I'm lazy. Okay. See what I mean? So the dollar underscore is referencing the parent. Oh, sorry, is referencing each individual object that's being stepped through. Does that make sense?
It does.
G'day, Delio. Long time no see, mate. So in this instance, our response, we're just basically like in this instance here. So where I went up here, I said it's the exact same process. So all I'm doing is I'm just using the index value. So instead of having, so if I've got a collection, let's just quickly go collection get process, because that's like I just used that. How you going with the book, mate? Because yeah, I've pretty much finished my chapter, but I didn't know if I had to just have an outline for this week or if I had to have a chapter done. So yeah, so if remember how I can index and I'll get the first response.
Yeah.
That's the same. So that's all we're doing here. We're just dynamically indexing. So yeah. Man, I'm struggling so hard with that book, mate. Like I'm not the biggest Git person, put it that way, and I do think I nearly effed up my Git environment. So, effed up my repository. So I had to fix that up, which was a bit of a pain. But yeah, I'm hoping that I'm gonna get that book finished. I'm aiming to have the chapter finished by this weekend, and then I'm just gonna submit a draft, and then if they like it, they like it. So. Yeah. Anyway, so that's basically what that's doing. I'm also going to update the exposure because it's getting really dark. I'm good with get just too much on plate and changing jobs. Oh, you changed jobs. Nice. How's that going for you? Configure video. I'm just updating the exposure for you guys so it's a little bit brighter. There we go. Sorry, the computer in the background is going to be like super bright now. Anyway, so that's what we've got there. So we're basically now testing it. So we've basically deserialized each of the 4 jobs and we've executed them. Next month, chocolatey. Bonus points. What's the dollar called? Give me money. No. Dollar. I actually don't know. It's actually I've never actually known what the dollar is. I think it's just I never know what the dollar is. A signal? You mean a signal? I think. Oh, there you go. Like I was just it was just like a prefix. It's a
Sigil.
Sigil. Okay, there you go. Sigil.
Also, whilst we're on English and the like, you've got present tense and past tense on line 172.
Yeah, deserialize each of the jobs and execute them. Okay, yeah, we'll leave it there for today. Also from Game of Thrones. Oh, okay. I want to actually quickly talk to you guys about past and present tense. It's really important, especially when you're reviewing people's discussions, especially when they're talking about things and you kind of suspect them of being deceptive. So when people recount stories, we're gonna finish up here. So if you guys want to jump off, that's fine. I'm just gonna quickly give you guys a bit of a bit of a once-off on something that just popped in my mind about deception detection. So one of the things that we talk about, we talk about what we call past and present tense when people basically recall things in their mind. And it's a really interesting thing. So, for example, if someone actually is making something up, generally speaking, there's a lot. It's very sequential. So, and you usually are going to get a lot more mix-ups in tense. So, when people basically are saying something, they actually get their tenses mixed up. So, it's actually really important when you actually, if you like, I generally do it in an interview. When asking questions about something, I'm actually looking for tense itself. So if someone's messing something up, it's generally a really good indication. Now, that's only one red flag. I can sit here all day and rabbit off red flags, but it's actually one of the biggest ones, especially within written work. So if you're actually writing, yes, you have grammar mistakes and things like that, but when actually someone's writing a recourse or a recount of of a specific piece of work or something, present tense and past tense is really, really important. So it's also things like and obviously looking for qualifiers and things like that. So like when a qualifier is something like, the next thing I knew, and then all of a sudden things like that, you kind of need to look at those kind of they're called verbal text bridges, where you're basically joining between one sentence and another, but something's happened in between. So you kind of need to investigate that. But anyway, I digress. That was a complete segue out of PowerShell into deception detection. But yeah, if you guys are interested, let me know, because I can definitely do a chat on that. It's actually yeah, it's really good. Like I can actually use really good examples. The other day I was actually rewatching the Serena Williams interview, and I was just like, mate, that's yeah. It makes me sad. It makes me sad. But anyway, guys, thanks for joining us. Sorry, Adilio. We're gonna go. It's getting quite late, and it's probably like 4 a.m. in the morning there for you as well. So you probably need to go to bed as well. But I hope you guys enjoyed it. It's really,
So thanks very much for joining us, chaps.
yeah. Thanks, guys. Really appreciate it. Thank you, Christian, for sticking up with me, for meandering on. At the same time, though, obviously, the more you get exposed to this, then the better you're going to get at it. So by the
Yeah.
time you're finished, you're going to have some skills, and then from there, you obviously be able to move forward. But anyway, guys, yeah, have a great night, and we'll hope to see you guys next time. I should be streaming Friday, so I'm planning to stream. What am I planning to stream? I have something I'm planning on streaming.
Let me tell you.
I think it's PowerShell and Chill. So I'm probably going to be
functions with pester.
okay. So I'm going to be writing the. I'm probably just going to update the pester tests on Friday and get that going. And then following that, basically, I'm probably going to be yeah. I'm not going to be doing any. I was thinking about doing some streaming on the weekend, but I'm not going to probably do any of that because I need to get this book done. I've got like 2 chapters to write, and I got 2 more. Sorry, 2 chapters. I've got 2 more paragraphs to write. If we can get those done and submitted, then at least then we can start that error checking process. So anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope to see you guys next time. And anyway, bye for now. See you guys.
Catch you later.